Hi everyone, my name is Richard Santoro and I welcome you to Third and Zen, the YouTube channel where every week I'm sharing a spiritual message to nourish ourselves, heart, mind, body, and soul. First, as always, thanks for stopping by the channel. Thank you for checking out this video. I do hope that this video finds you doing well. I do hope that you're taking the time to care for yourself, heart, mind, body, and soul. And I hope that you always remember, that you are worthy of all the love, all the care, all the time, patience, and understanding that you might need. So again, thanks for being here. Hope you're doing well. If you feel like sharing this video, liking the video, subscribing, all that is supremely helpful. But either way, thanks for being here. With that being said, let's just take a moment and take a nice deep breath. Just take a moment. Give yourself that. Give yourself permission to just sit. Just be still for a second. Just do nothing. Take some breaths. Relax into your chair. Loosen your posture. Whatever you're doing, standing, sitting, and just settle. Just soften into this moment. Release any tension and just... And let's get started with today's message, shall we? So I want to share with all of us a story that I heard during a TED Talk, which I will share a link to down below. So this story that was shared with me by the speaker at this TED Talk goes like this. A software consulting firm's largest, sorry, I had a tough time with that. Now I was going to start over. That's awesome. A software consulting firm's largest and most important client had a very specific and important programming problem that the firm just couldn't figure out and solve. None of the engineers or programmers could get a handle on. And this struggling consulting firm was about to lose its top client, which would have been a huge blow. So one night during all of this, the owner of the consulting firm and a handful of the engineers and programmers went to their favorite bar to wallow in their impending doom. The bartender, Jeff, he was doing his best job of commiserating with them and comforting them and etc., all that. Finally, after several rounds of drinks, Jeff, the bartender, who had zero software or computer expertise, says, "Why don't you send me in there? I can figure it out." They all laugh it off, and eventually this night of theirs comes to an end. The next morning, while nursing hangovers and trying to figure out their next move, the consulting company owner half-jokingly says, "Hey, we're about to be fired, so why don't we send Jeff in there?" Jeff the bartender. As was explained in the TED Talk, Jeff the bartender was wicked smart and absolutely brilliant. He was a former philosophy major from the University of Pennsylvania, and he could go really deep on topics. So after a little bit of discussion and debate and figuring they had nothing to lose at this point, the software consulting firm that was about to be fired by their biggest and most important client sent Jeff, the former philosophy major bartender, to discuss a computer programming issue that nobody with expertise could figure out. So they all sat back and they waited. And a day went by. And Jeff was still there. And after another day, the client had still not sent Jeff the bartender home. And you know what? It actually worked. Jeff took care of it. Jeff the bartender figured out more than a solution to a specific issue. They were no longer focused on the programming fix alone. He changed the conversation, and he even changed what they were building. And now they were also focused on why they were going to build something. And soon, this happy client became one of the software consulting company's best references. The consulting company had at the time 200 employees, half of whom were computer science majors and engineers. But because of Jeff, the former philosophy major bartender, the company made changes in recruiting and training. They still sought after computer engineers and software people, but now they began to add artists, musicians, writers, and other people with degrees and backgrounds in the humanities. Their chief technology officer was an English major and Manhattan bike messenger. Now they have 1,000 people working for them, yet still fewer than 100 employees have computer science and engineering degrees. And they are a billion-dollar company now and tops in their field. And they've become an advocate and model for companies to branch out their recruiting and hiring practices to be more uniquely diverse. As the owner of this software consulting company points out, he learned that yes, they need employees with specialized technical training and skills, but they also need people with skills like Jeff the bartender, philosophers, artists, writers, musicians, English majors, drama majors, the humanities. People that, as he puts it, help us to work together as humans and envision the end product, which requires real-world experience and judgment and context. He says that what Jeff's story taught them is that the customer was focused on the wrong thing and they were failing to articulate their needs. And Jeff, with his unique and non-technical background, was able to come at it from a different angle of communication and insight. He goes on to state that people like Jeff, with a humanities background, quote, give us the context of our world, teach us how to think critically. They teach us to persuade. They give us our language, which we use to convert our emotions to thought and action. I love that so much. And what he says that I love the most, if you have friends or kids or relatives or anybody, encourage them to be whatever they want to be. And he finds a lesson for all groups in that they needs for diversity shouldn't end with gender or race. We need a diversity of backgrounds and skills, introverts, extroverts, leaders, followers, philosophers, and so on. I loved hearing this story so much. Now, pardon me, there are two things that I really love about it. The first is that it perfectly illustrates what we need most in our society, whether it's in churches or in group settings or in businesses or in any type of organization or system or institution or tribe or whatever, where we have a group of people trying to be and work together. We need that kind of diversity. We need introverts and extroverts. We need leaders and followers. We need people who can get dirty and build things with their hands, and we need people who can go deep on topics. We need people with humanities degrees and people with technical degrees and people with no degrees whatsoever. We need all gender types. We need younger people and older people and people somewhere in the middle. We need single people and married people and complicated people and people with kids and people without kids. We need kids, period. We need youth and youth-centric minds. We need people with happy lives and people with unhappy lives and people with joys and people with a slew of trials and tribulations. We need people with troubled pasts and battle scars and lessons learned. We need liberals and conservatives and Democrats and Republicans and people who don't fit into any political box whatsoever. We need people who travel and people who are homebodies. We need artists and musicians and philosophers and readers and daydreamers. We need animal lovers and surfers and sports fans and poets and astronomers. We need people with hope and with joy and with faith and with deep spiritual thoughts. We need people with anxiety and fear and doubt and sadness and pain. We need people who can be strong and people who are sometimes challenged and weak and scared. We need people who have been heroes and helpers and healers. And we need people who have been victims and hurt terribly. We need people who are flawed or noble or uncertain or confident or not confident at all. We need people who are courageous or scared or bold or timid. We need people who are outspoken and people who are more low-key and chill. We need people who are meticulous and detailed and organized, and we need people who are just a hot mess on a daily basis. We need people who are studious and serious and people who are silly and funny and sarcastic. We need people who laugh and people who cry and people who take naps and people who like to fish and people who like to cook and people who like to stare at the stars and think about nothing at all. We need people with different backgrounds and different ethnicities and different socioeconomic standings and different sexual orientations and different gender identifications. We need people on different paths and with different outlooks and with different life experiences. In short, my friends, we need you, all of you. We need all of you here right now and everywhere around us. Like this story shows, we need a diversity of people with different backgrounds and outlooks and approaches. We need you and your uniqueness and your diverse gifts. Like the big client in the story, we need you to help us in all areas of society with new ways of existing and seeing things in the world and in the society around us. We need you to help with new ways of seeing problems. We need you to help us with new ways of finding solutions. We need you, plain and simple. So, all of that I just listed and mentioned, all of that is reason number one why I like that story. It perfectly illustrates what we need here in our society, what we need in the pockets of groups and institutions and organizations and just anywhere there's circles of people trying to be and relate and do and all that stuff. A diverse and beautiful mosaic and tapestry of different unique individuals and voices and outlooks and gifts and backgrounds and so on. And to that point, this story is a wonderful, wonderful reminder that is exactly the approach that Jesus took. And that is the second thing that I love about the story. It is a reminder that I have alluded to previously in other messages, that Jesus gathered around him a group of people that were diverse, and that were a diverse and beautiful mosaic and tapestry of different, unique individuals and voices and outlooks and gifts and backgrounds and so on. That's what Jesus did. He surrounded himself with men and women, young and old, from different paths and experiences and walks of life. You had Peter, the outspoken and hot-headed fisherman. You had John, the young and very brash teenager. You had Mary Magdalene, the passionate and very deep-feeling soul. You had Thomas, the bold and very courageous man of faith and very deep thought. You had Martha, the ultimate leader and disciple and doer. You had Martha's sister, Mary, the quiet and spiritual student. You had Matthew, the sinful and corrupt tax collector looking for belonging and a new life and people. You had Judas, the extremist, the zealot, wanted things to be done in a certain way, his way. You had Andrew, the master minister and helper and facilitator. You had Nicodemus, the pious and religious and orthodox Jewish scholar. You had Joseph of Arimathea, the reluctant but brave and very generous friend. And you had others who made up a diverse and beautiful mosaic and tapestry of different, unique individuals and voices and outlooks and gifts and backgrounds and so on. And Jesus called them all exactly as they were. When he called them, none of them were required to do anything at all but be themselves and bring their uniqueness and their diversity to the group. None of them were required to do anything except be themselves Try to find faith, try to find belief, and follow and serve. And each and every one of them were vital to the body of Christ and the society and community that they were a part of. We know that they needed Jesus, and reciprocally, Jesus needed them. And conversely, all bodies of Christ that exist out there, all churches and societies and groups and organizations and tribes and institutions and circles of individuals doing the best that they can to relate to one another and the world around them and be the best versions of themselves. We need your voice. We need your outlook. We need your gifts. We need what only you can bring to the table. You know, I got to tell you something. I'm just going to pause for a second. When I had written this sermon, I really struggled at the time finding a message at that time, for whatever reason. I had so many options. I had accumulated up to that time so many different ideas, so much that I actually wanted to say, and sometimes the opportunities to deliver a message were limited. And then at the time when I was struggling, I watched the TED-TALK that I talked about earlier. And my internal Spirit/Jesus-led response to that message was immediate. This was going to be that message. The reminder, then as now, that we, all of us, need your voice. We need you. None of us does it alone. We need you all around us. The world needs you. And as I have mentioned recently in other videos, then as now, we live in turbulent times. We live in challenging times. I know you don't need me to tell us that. It's hard at times to balance social issues and social justice and social reform with everyday life and keeping the peace with people around us who don't want to be bothered with it or aren't looking to care for that stuff, or just in general. It's not easy sometimes doing that. But those who are trying can't do it alone. I know I can't do it alone to change the world around me, as try as I might. But maybe, just maybe, what we need, what I need, what all of us needs, what the world needs, is for some of you, for some of us, to do what Jeff the bartender did and help us find new ways of seeing and new ways of approaching things. New ways of seeing what are the problems and what aren't the problems, and new ways of seeing solutions. So bottom line, we need you. We need you. We need you and all of your unique individuality and voice and outlook and gifts and backgrounds and experiences and so on and so forth. We need you for our diverse and beautiful mosaic and tapestry that is this world and society. As Mr. Rogers would say, I love you exactly the way you are, and so does Jesus. And we need you. Thanks be to God. Amen. Again, my friends, thank you so much for stopping by the channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I really appreciate it, if I haven't said that already. So thank you. I do hope that you found this video fruitful in some way, and I wish you nothing but peace and love and fellowship with God in your journey going forward. So have a great day. Have a great week. Have a great every step of your journey. I love you all. Thank you again. Ciao.